from here or there. It's about an aggression that will strike the whole Syrian people. And I hope that these words would be extremely important for the congressional leaders and the Congress members while discussing in their hearings whether they will allow the White House to strike or not. We are all in Syria now we are all victims of any escalation of the situation. You cannot save children by killing children and civilians.
Mr. Jafari, so how will it affect the morale of your government if and when the U.S. takes this action and a lot of your military facilities will be destroyed? They're not saying they're going in as an invading force, but you've seen these actions in the past. You've seen it in other places, cruise missiles, other strikes. They can be devastating. Are you afraid of defections of the government and its allies sort of collapsing?
We are not warmongers. We are not war advocates. We are a peaceful nation, a small nation, and we don't pretend to be equally strong enough to confront the United States military. This is not the case. We are a victim of any aggression that might happen at any time. We are mainly and keen interest in safeguarding the interest of our people and preventing any aggression. We have been calling on the American administration for years, since the beginning of the crisis, to get involved, positively speaking, in resolving this crisis, which is dramatic and regrettable. But unfortunately,
Mr.
the American administration closed its embassy in Damascus, shut down all channels, diplomatic channels, and worked out a secret strategy to help the insurgents and the armed groups against the government.
Mr. Jafari, you are portraying your government as the victim. Presumably that's your job at this point. But obviously what's happening is because of the aggression by your government against Syrians, including right now the use of chemical weapons. There is a forensic Syrian chemical weapons expert who has defected, according to the opposition, and is now in Turkey and will, he says, make public what he knows about the regime's involvement in the use of chemical weapons. That is going to seal this situation, isn't it?
Christiane, these allegations are false and unfounded. You can repeat the same mistakes that the previous American administrations did at many times. During Vietnam War, or during the Cuban crisis, or the Iraqi war with Colin Powell in the Security Council presenting high confidence evidences, as he said at that time. By the way, he used the same description used by Mr. Kerry 3 days ago, when Mr. Kerry said also he had high evidences, high confidence evidences. So any opponent in any opposition could come out to the media or to any other intelligence sponsoring him and say that his government did this and that. You may remember what Mr. Al-Shalabi, the Iraqi guy, did before the invasion of Iraq, when he pushed the American intelligence towards the hypothesis of Iraq having chemical weapons also, and weapons of mass destruction. Then everybody apologized later on, including Mr. Colin Powell, for this allegation. I'm really afraid that we are repeating the same tragic and regrettable scenario in the case of Syria today. The Syrian government...
The problem with what you're saying, though, the problem with what you're saying is that you are confusing Iraq and Syria. Syria does have chemical weapons, and many, many doctors and independent investigators, as well as national intelligence, have concluded that those weapons have been used and have been used by the Syrian government. And this is not the first time on August 21st. There's been many occasions, and there have been many tests of victims of biomedical tests, you know, hair and blood and urine samples, which have proven it. Are you saying that there are no chemical weapons in Syria, or are you just saying that you didn't do it?
Thank you very much for asking these very important questions. Number one, the Syrian government did not say that the Sarin gas was not used in Khan al-Assal. Actually, we were the first to say that in March the 20th, which means 1 day after the attack by chemical substances on Khan al-Assal. And we insisted in our request to the Secretary General on two things. A, to prove that the chemical weapons were used. B, who did it. The American delegation, the French and the British at that time, objected to B. They just wanted to focus on whether the chemical weapons were used or not. So we were highly interested from the beginning in shedding lights on the use of chemical weapons by the armed groups in Khan al-Assal. This is number one. Number two, we are not saying that chemical weapons were used, I mean chemical weapons in its conventional definition as one type of the weapons of mass destruction. What Mr. Kerry said 2 days ago about the signatures of Sarin found in the results he referred to is not a big discovery, because the Syrian government said it 5 months ago. We said from the beginning that the Sarin gas, neurotoxic gas were used in Khan al-Assal. And nobody cared about it at the time because all of them knew who did it. And the British intelligence, as you may remember, sneaked illegally inside Syria, took samples from Khan al-Assal, analyzed the samples, and came out with the result, which is that the armed groups used the chemical weapons in Khan al-Assal. So
Mr. Jaffari,
then the Russians themselves submitted a report
the British,
to
the
Security
French,
Council.
the United States, sir, the British, the French, the United States all say that chemical weapons have been used, as you say, but that they have been used by your government because the opposition does simply not have access to the delivery systems, to the wherewithal, to the stockpiles. And it kind of beggars belief, sir, and this is unfortunately a historical precedent, to think that people are gassing themselves. So this is a major problem with your argument. And it does sound right now that the Syrian government is pretty afraid. All of a sudden, all of you are out giving interviews, the president, Assad to the Figaro, you are talking to me, others are talking to other journalists. I'm trying to figure out, you believe, don't you, that there is going to be a major U.S. strike on your military facilities?
Christiane, the reports emanating from USA, France and Britain are not and could not be taken seriously, and they are not credible, because these three governments are deeply involved in the Syrian crisis, in helping the armed groups against the government. So the Russians themselves submitted a report.
Sir,
give me some time, please, to clarify my point. The Russians submitted a report of 80 pages to the Security Council. The Judge Del Ponte from Geneva testified that, according to her information, the armed groups used the chemical weapons in Khan al-Assal. So please, we have other resources of information who say exactly the opposite of what the American and the British and the French are saying. And then why anticipating on the results of the team of investigators who are currently working very seriously on obtaining results of their mission in Syria? Why preempting the results by this kind of irresponsible anticipation? Why preparing the ground for an illegal military aggression against Syria? Let us wait and see what would be the results of the investigative team.
Well, they seem to say they have taken a lot of samples, and as I say, yet again, sorry to keep repeating myself, but there have been many, many tests done over the last year or so, because you haven't used them just once, you've used them several times, according to intelligence and according to opposition figures. So again, if indeed, given what's going on, would Syria agree to a proposal that's happening and being floated right now to allow the UN or others to come in and simply remove all your stockpiles, all chemical weapons from Syria?
This is not the issue right now. The issue right now is about preventing the American aggression against my country. Then any related issue to the weapons of mass destruction could be examined seriously later on. I would like to remind you that Syria, when it was member of the Security Council in 2003, submitted a draft resolution to the Security Council on the establishment of a zone free from all weapons of mass destruction. And we were objected to at that time by the American delegation. So we are keen interest in having all weapons of mass destruction out of the area of the Middle East. including the Israeli nuclear armament, which is the most dangerous weapon of mass destruction.
All right, let me ask you this, sir. Nobody believes you, basically, because everything you've said, not just you, but I mean your government, and you speak for your government, everything you've said over the last 2.5 years have simply been, swatted away by the facts. You have simply escalated this war and the use of different weapons, conventional and now non-conventional. And so you are in a very, very weak situation in terms of having the credibility on your side. You're trying to say that it's the others who are using them and not you. Can I ask you, because there are countries which favor you, such as Russia, China, the others, are you getting military or intelligence help from the Russians?
Christiane, in
terms of what's going on now?
I'm really worried at hearing these bellicose talks in the American media. The media is a very important weapon of mass destruction also. So the media,
I don't think you
whether
can
in
say
America
that.
or outside, you should lead the public opinion towards the right path. We don't need wars or aggression in the area. We are fed up with wars. The American people are fed up with wars. You have had thousands of American soldiers killed in our area, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya, elsewhere, in Lebanon. We don't need wars. We need peaceful settlement of conflicts according to the Charter of the United Nations.
All right, Mr. Jaffery, the problem is you're prosecuting this war. You're prosecuting this war, and the way you have put it out is that you are fighting against terrorists. That is your government's position. So that's how you've been justifying it. But here's the thing: even your Arab brethren, even the Arab League, has said that the use of chemical weapons is obviously illegal, and those who use them, and they also believe that it has been the Syrian government. They've kicked you out of the Arab League. Those who use them should be tried like war criminals. I guess I want to know, in our defending a regime, a government that has caused so much bloodshed and that has really crossed the line from any kind of civil war into weapons of mass destruction, into one of the highest crimes of international law. How do you personally sleep at night?
I believe that the use of chemical weapons or biological weapons or nuclear weapons is a horrible, appalling crime. And those who perpetrate such a horrible crime, whether they are Israelis or others, should be held accountable to the internationally established mechanisms, not to the bully of the world, the policeman of the world, represented by the American intelligence reports or false allegations coming from France or Britain or Saudi Arabia or Israel. What I'm saying is that, yes, we do have a domestic crisis. Yes, wrongdoings happened in the past. Yes, injustices took place in Syria in the past. We need to correct this, and we believe in what Obama said as his logo in the elections. A change, yes, we can, and yes, we need, in Syria itself as well as outside of Syria.